Right, so last lecture, we created essentially this environment using our tile palette editor. What I'd like to do now is start working on player stuff. So let's go ahead and right click inside of here and then create empty. I'm just going to name mine player. You can name yours whatever you like. All right, I'm going to right click on the word transform here and just reset it so that it is set to 000. I'm going to hit W so you can see where that's at, right about there. And eventually we'll just place him, or we'll create a game object that we can start as our starting port or instantiation point. All right, so the next thing I need to do is add a component, and I'm going to add the animator component. And what this does is this particular component controls how animations are moved, or animation states are switched. So we'll start off with an idle state, which we'll create here, and then it'll move to a walking state if you press like one of the WASD keys or arrow keys or controller or whatever. And so this controls that. So what I could do is, let's see, I'm going to create a folder inside of my platformer here, and I'm just going to call it NPC, or I'll just call it PC for player controller for now. And inside of this, I'm going to create or player character, sorry. I'm going to go to animation here, and I'm going to create a animator controller. And I'm going to call this player controller. Actually, inside of here, let's create a folder called anim, and that's just short for animation, and let's drop that inside of there. Now, if we double click this, you'll see, and I'll dock this down here next to my tile palette, you can see there's any state, entry, exit. This is where we set up our animations. Now, we've done this before, but I'm not going to burden you with doing it by yourself because we forget, right? There's time between semesters, things like that. And if you do remember it, go ahead and build out an advanced one if you like, and then just come back and see if you did it the same way that I did it here. Or maybe you could do it better. Let's see. Now let's do a little bit of exploration. If you look at this platformer art pack, they already have the stuff that we're doing inside of here. So a lot of the asset controllers that the assets you download from the asset store are going to have this stuff in here. But we want to essentially do this ourselves, right? Like we want to learn how to actually set up our own sprites and stuff. So you could even see they have some scripts in here, scenes, demo scene, and then sprites. If we go into animation here and there's animator controllers, you can see that they already created a bunch of animator controllers for player run, jump, hold, all this stuff. And then they have already set up the animations, player idle animation here. And these are just different animations that they have for the player itself. Now, if we go to, let's see, here's their tile map that we borrowed before. And let's see, palette, tile palette. I think that's just their particular tile palette. We have our own. And I think this entities folder is where they have the entity for the player. So you can see here's the walk, look up. Looks like this is like a squid monster. So something like this for our walk. And this is really just a multiple here. And he has all the animations set on that particular one. So there's really just one character here. We could, and you could give this a shot if you want to, just download a new character. So I'm going to actually select entities here and hit Control D to duplicate this. And I'm going to drag this into my PC folder here. And I'm going to rename this player. Now, they already have it cut up for us, right? Like if you look at this, it's cut up 16 by 16 per pixels. I'm going to just sort of reset this. Let's see if I can just hit reset, see if that takes me back. Yeah, so here's default 2D, all this stuff. And I'm going to, now you can see that all of my settings are gone, right? It just looks like a bunch of images. So actually, let me open theirs up again to just sort of show you the settings that you go through for something like this. So here we go, back to entities here. And you could see that we want a sprite in a 2D UI. That's exactly correct. So let's go ahead and change that. And then notice here that it's black here. It's not taking in the alpha or the channel in the back. So I'm going to hit apply there. Now you can see that it took that in when I changed it to a sprite 2D UI. The other thing is, like, let's see if I could actually, I can't drag it in yet, but in sprite mode, I think by default it's generally set to single. I'm going to go ahead and set this to multiple. And then the pixels per unit is, they actually measured this out to be 16 by 16 when they created this. So I'm just going to type in 16 here. and I'm going to hit apply. Now, if I open I select this, notice it's still not doing where the entities did, where they're all broken up like that. For that, I have to open my sprite editor here. And you can see here's the character, right? And if I go to slice here and I hit automatic and I hit slice, you'll see it'll automatically detect those based on the spacing and that alpha, and that it says 16 by 16. Now these could be these could be sliced up a little bit better. I don't really care about those, but let's just go ahead and hit apply. And then now you could see when I go back over here, it renamed each one of those entities player. Now the quality I don't think is the same, so we might have to fix that. Unless it is the same. Yeah, theirs is a bit sharper. So I'm going to go in here and let's see what their quality settings are. They have 16 here. Mitchell, I don't think they have any compression on, so let's see. Compression quality, normal quality. I think they selected none. And when I hit apply now, you could see it still looks pretty bad. Let's see. No, they did compression none, automatic, Mitchell 2048, tight. Point no filter is probably what it is, because we're doing this bilinear filter. If we do no filter and we hit apply, that should sharpen it up a lot. Yeah, there we go. That filter, what it does is it blurs the edges here, so that like for photographs, you want stuff like that where you don't want any harsh edges because then it looks 8-bit, but in reality, we want an 8-bit image. So I think for our idle, we've got this whole running. I don't know if that's just the hair moving between 9 and 10. So I think my idle is really just going to be 9 and 10, him looking up. So it could be 0, 9, and 10 could be my idle, or we'll just do 9 and 10. Or it could be 0, 9, and 10, and then back to 0 for the loop. All right, so we've got our animation controller. We've got our character broken up. Let's work on getting let's work towards getting the idle animation going. All right, so here's 0, and I think we said, 9 and 10. So I'm going to hold 0, 9, and 10, and I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to go to Create, and I'm going to click on Animation. And then I want to, let's see, create a animation clip. And now this new animation here, let's see, if I double-click it, it should open up here. And we'll name this, actually, let me close this. Actually, I'm going to rename this idle animation, or just idle. And I'm going to place this in the atoms folder. And what I can do here is, here's player 0, for example. Oh, wait, that's not right. We want player 0 to be a child of this. And on our player here, our player animator here, we're going to grab our player controller here and drop that in. Let's actually move this guy up a little bit. Now I'm moving the player, you can call it like player art, because this is the transform of our player, right? So what I want to do is, you can see that this player, and we can call it like transform or something. Actually, we'll just leave it player. Just understand that anytime it doesn't have a name after it that specifies that it's the game object or mesh. So here's our player art. I'm going to move this up so that the base of the feet here are at the bottom of that player. So now that represents that player there. And what we can do actually is, I'm going to copy this component, and then I'm going to really just delete player art for a second. And then I'm going to paste this component here. And then, let's see. Actually, here, I'll address that in a second. I want to do this. So go ahead and double click your idle, and then let's dock our animation window down here next to animator. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this idle and drop it in here. And this will be from our entry point, which means once our animation starts, it'll go to idle. But if we go to animation here and we expand this idle, you can see here that we have these 4 images, right? And I can scrub through these images, or these 3 images rather. We have 0, 2, 1, and 2. We could also control the speed of that, how fast it loops through that idle. Let's do this from scratch. So I'm going to go ahead and add a sprite renderer component. And then what I want is that player 0 sprite. And I'm going to drag that in there. So it's kind of doing the same thing as before. I'm just showing you this step by step. Now, if you don't see your player, like it's hiding behind where you created your, say you created a level that was much higher. Remember that you can always adjust the sort order here by setting the number higher or lower. So like for example, like our platform here is set to, let's see, 0 and, oh, I forgot. Let's go ahead and make a default layer. We have, let's see, here's our sorting layer. We have background, we have platform. Let's add a sorting layer and let's just call this one player. And we are going to have collision set up, but I always want this to be on top of everything, right? And then let's select our player here and let's make sure that we tag that sorting layer to player. And let's make this 0. And did I do that right? Let's see. Oh, render layer. No, that's right. Render layer, sorting layer, player. Let's go to add sorting layer. If I move this down, is that what I'm thinking? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I always want this to be, in the front. Like we could always, again, so that way it could run by trees. And then when we have collision up, it won't go through there. So let's set up our animation. So you can see we have these 3 frames. Now this is going to go by really, really quickly because it's 3 frames. And if we look at our animation here and we go to this 3 little line here and we change it from seconds to frames, you could see that there's roughly 24 to 30 frames in a second depending on your setup, right? If I go to seconds here, you can see that it doesn't even hit, here's the 1 second mark. So when I press play right now, and let me go back to my animator for a second, you could see it just flipped through those really quickly. And what I want to do is I want that to loop, right? See how it's stuck there? So the way to do that is to go back to your let's see, our idle here animation that we have in our scene. We want to loop the time. And then for our animator here, we can actually select it here. Now it's looping. We can set that to maybe the speed to half the speed. And now when I press play, it should just keep looping between him looking up and his hair moving. See, now you can see that. It's moving really quickly. All right, so let's go ahead and just set this to 0.1. Press play. It's too slow. Maybe 0.3. All right, I'm going to save this scene. And I think, let's go ahead and just move our player up for a second. And I think for now, that's a pretty good. We're already at like almost 15 minutes. So I think that's good to see how to create an idle animation. You could always tweak that later.